What if the greatest treasure in history was never buried underground? What if it was erased? Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that hundreds of the most powerful warriors in Europe had been arrested overnight. Their castles were seized, their leaders imprisoned, their wealth targeted by a king desperate for money. Now imagine what happened next. The authorities searched everywhere. They opened vaults. They broke into strongholds. They examined records. They expected to find mountains of gold, priceless jewels, and unimaginable riches. Instead, they found almost nothing. The treasure was gone. Not reduced, not partially stolen. Gone, completely vanished. And more than 700 years later, people are still asking the same question. Where did the Templar treasure go? Or perhaps an even stranger question. Did it ever exist at all? The story begins with a group that seemed unlikely to become one of the most powerful organizations in medieval Europe, the Knights Templar. At first, they were little more than a handful of warriors dedicated to protecting Christian pilgrims traveling through the Holy Land. They were not kings. They were not wealthy nobles. They were not rulers of vast territories. Yet within a remarkably short period of time, they transformed into something far greater. Their influence spread across continents. Their reputation grew with every passing year. Their symbol became recognized throughout Europe, and their wealth became the subject of endless fascination. But wealth attracts attention, and attention attracts enemies, especially when kings begin owing money to the very people they are supposed to command. By the early 14th century, rumors about the Templars were everywhere. Some claimed they possessed enormous treasures hidden inside secret vaults. Others whispered about sacred relics, forbidden knowledge, and mysterious artifacts gathered during their years in the Holy Land. Nobody knew how much was true. But one thing was certain. The Templars had become powerful enough to make rulers nervous. Their castles stretched across Europe. Their ships crossed dangerous seas. Their financial network connected distant kingdoms. Merchants trusted them. Nobles relied on them. Even monarchs borrowed from them. In many ways, they had become more than a military order. They had become an international power, and that power created fear. For some rulers, the Templars seemed too wealthy, too independent, too influential. Among those rulers stood King Philip IV of France, a king burdened by debt, a king facing financial difficulties, a king who owed money to the very organization he increasingly distrusted. As tensions grew, suspicion spread. Stories began circulating about secret ceremonies, hidden rituals, and mysterious practices within the order. Many of these accusations lacked evidence. Some may have been entirely fabricated, but they served a purpose. They gave Philip a reason to act. Then came the event that changed everything. Friday, October 13th, 1307. Before sunrise, royal orders were carried across France. The instructions were clear. Arrest the Templars. Confiscate their property. Destroy their power. The operation unfolded with shocking speed. Hundreds of knights were captured. Interrogations began. Accusations spread. And while the kingdom focused on the arrests, another mystery was quietly emerging. Because when investigators searched for the legendary treasure, they discovered something unexpected. The vaults were not overflowing with gold. The great fortune they expected to seize was nowhere to be found. No vast treasure hoard. No mountain of silver. No legendary wealth waiting to be claimed. Only questions. Questions that would survive long after the kings, knights, and empires involved had vanished into history. And those questions would become the beginning of one of the world's greatest treasure mysteries. To understand why the missing treasure became such a powerful legend, we first need to understand how the Knights Templar became so wealthy. Their story began in poverty. According to tradition, the first Templars lived modestly, bound by vows of obedience, chastity, and poverty. They were warrior monks, men who combined religious devotion with military service. But as the Crusades continued, their role expanded. Pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land needed protection. Kings needed reliable soldiers. Nobles wanted to support a cause considered sacred. Donations began pouring in. Land, money, castles, privileges. The gifts came from every corner of Europe. And with each passing decade, the order grew stronger. Soon, the Templars controlled vast estates across multiple kingdoms. Their fortresses guarded important routes. Their fleets crossed the Mediterranean. Their influence stretched far beyond the battlefield. Yet their greatest innovation was not military. It was financial. At a time when carrying large amounts of gold was dangerous, the Templars developed a system that allowed travelers to deposit money in one location and withdraw it elsewhere. For medieval Europe, it was revolutionary. A nobleman could leave France with a document issued by the Templars and receive funds in Jerusalem. The system was safer, faster, more efficient. In many ways, it resembled modern banking. As a result, the order became trusted by merchants, nobles, and monarchs. Money flowed through Templar hands on an enormous scale. Loans were issued, debts accumulated, treasuries expanded. Their wealth became legendary. But legends have a habit of growing larger than reality. The richer the Templars became, the more extraordinary the stories surrounding them. Some claimed they possessed relics brought back from Jerusalem. Others believed they had discovered hidden chambers beneath the Temple Mount. There were rumors of sacred artifacts and lost secrets. Evidence was scarce. Speculation was endless, and every unanswered question made the order seem mysterious. As decades passed, stories spread across Europe. Travelers repeated them. A hidden treasure buried beneath sacred ground. A fortune protected by secret codes. No one could prove these stories. Yet they refused to disappear. Then everything changed. When King Philip IV launched his crackdown in 1307, he expected to seize enormous wealth. After all, the Templars had operated for nearly 2 centuries. They owned land throughout Europe. They managed vast financial networks. Logic suggested their treasure should have been easy to find. But when royal officials began searching, something was wrong. The legendary fortune seemed to have disappeared. Records suggested wealth. Rumors described wealth. Enemies spoke constantly of wealth, yet investigators struggled to locate the vast treasure they expected. This raised a disturbing possibility. Had someone warned the Templars? Had they known the arrests were coming? Some historians believe the answer may be yes. And if so, what happened next may have changed history. Witnesses later reported seeing ships leaving the Templar port of La Rochelle shortly before the arrests began. Not one ship. Not two, an entire fleet. The vessels departed quietly, without explanation, without a recorded destination. Then they vanished. No official record clearly reveals where they went. No confirmed inventory explains what they carried, and no treasure was ever recovered from them. Some believe the ship sailed toward Scotland. Others point toward Portugal. Whatever the truth may be, the disappearance of the fleet transformed a historical mystery into a legend. The mystery had begun. A fleet disappears. A fortune vanishes. An entire organization collapses. And somewhere in the middle of it all lies a secret that generations have tried to uncover. For centuries, treasure hunters and historians followed that trail. Most found nothing. But the legend only grew stronger. The disappearance of the Templar fleet sparked centuries of speculation. Where did the ships go? What were they carrying? And why did they vanish without leaving a clear trace in history? The first theories emerged almost immediately. Some believed the treasure had been hidden somewhere in France before the arrests began. Remote forests, forgotten caves, abandoned fortresses. Across the centuries, countless expeditions searched these places. Most returned empty-handed. Yet every failed search only deepened the mystery. Then attention shifted north, to Scotland. At the time of the Templar arrests, Scotland was in conflict with England and beyond the immediate reach of the French king. Some researchers believe fleeing Templars may have found refuge there. Legends soon appeared linking the order to Rosslyn Chapel, one of the most mysterious medieval structures in Europe. Its walls are covered with intricate carvings, symbols, strange figures, patterns that continue to inspire debate among historians and treasure hunters alike. To some, the chapel is merely a remarkable work of medieval art. To others, it may conceal clues left behind by the Templars themselves. But Scotland was only one possibility. Another theory points toward Portugal. Unlike many rulers in Europe, the Portuguese crown did not completely destroy the Templars. Instead, many members were absorbed into a new organization known as the Order of Christ. Their properties survived. Their influence continued. And some historians believe portions of the Templar wealth may have been transferred there. If true, the treasure never vanished. It simply changed hands. Yet even this theory leaves important questions unanswered. What happened to the rumored gold? The sacred relics? The mysterious documents that legends insist existed? No definitive evidence has ever emerged. As the centuries passed, the stories became even more extraordinary. Some claimed the Templars possessed the Holy Grail, Others believed they had discovered the Ark of the Covenant beneath Jerusalem. There were tales of secret maps, hidden bloodlines, and ancient knowledge capable of reshaping history itself. Most historians remain skeptical. The evidence supporting such claims is extremely weak. Yet these legends continue to capture imaginations around the world because they offer something irresistible: the possibility that history still contains secrets waiting to be uncovered. By the 19th and 20th centuries, treasure hunters were actively searching for physical proof. Ancient castles were explored, hidden tunnels were excavated, remote islands were investigated. Countless books were written, documentaries were produced, theories multiplied. Every generation seemed determined to solve the mystery once and for all. But the deeper researchers dug, the stranger the story became. The problem was simple: there was no single treasure. Historical records show that the Templars owned land, buildings, financial assets, ships, and valuable goods spread across multiple countries. Their wealth was not stored in one giant vault. It was distributed across an entire network. That realization changed the mystery completely. Perhaps people had imagined a mountain of gold where none had ever existed. Perhaps the legendary treasure was an exaggeration born from centuries of rumors. Or perhaps the truth was far more complicated. Because even if the treasure was real, finding it after 700 years would be nearly impossible. Records had been destroyed. Witnesses were gone. Buildings had vanished. Empires had risen and fallen. Entire generations had passed while the mystery endured. Yet one question remained. If there was no great treasure, why did the legend refuse to die? And that question leads to an even more intriguing possibility. Maybe people have been searching for the wrong treasure all along. Maybe people have been searching for the wrong treasure all along. For generations, treasure hunters imagined chests overflowing with gold. They pictured jewels hidden beneath castles, secret vaults buried under mountains, lost riches waiting to be discovered by whoever could solve the puzzle. But what if the greatest Templar treasure was never gold? What if it was something far more valuable? Something that could not be weighed. Something that could not be melted down or spent. Something powerful enough to survive 7 centuries. This idea has fueled some of the most controversial theories surrounding the Knights Templar. According to these theories, the order may have possessed knowledge rather than treasure, documents rather than gold, secrets rather than jewels. And if those secrets threatened powerful institutions, hiding them would have been far more important than protecting money. Consider the circumstances. The Templars spent nearly 200 years operating in the Holy Land. They traveled through regions filled with ancient ruins, forgotten libraries, and cultures far older than medieval Europe. They interacted with scholars, merchants, pilgrims, and rulers from across the known world. During that time, they may have gained access to information unavailable to most Europeans. Of course, there is no definitive proof that they uncovered earth-shattering secrets, but the possibility has fascinated researchers for centuries. Some believe the Templars discovered lost religious texts. Others suggest they found records capable of challenging accepted historical narratives. There are even theories claiming they uncovered knowledge hidden beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The evidence remains uncertain, yet the persistence of these stories reveals something important. People are often more fascinated by hidden knowledge than hidden gold. Gold can buy power. Knowledge can reshape entire civilizations. That distinction lies at the heart of the mystery. Imagine for a moment that the Templars truly possessed information powerful enough to threaten kings or religious authorities. If such knowledge existed, secrecy would become essential. It would need to be protected, moved, hidden, perhaps even erased. Suddenly, the disappearance of ships becomes more intriguing. The missing archives become more significant. The lack of treasure becomes less surprising, because the most valuable cargo might not have been treasure chests at all. It might have been documents, maps, records, ideas. Across the centuries, countless organizations have guarded information more carefully than wealth. Empires have fallen because of secrets. Wars have begun because of secrets. Entire belief systems have been challenged by newly discovered information. The Templar legend fits perfectly into that pattern. And perhaps that explains why the mystery refuses to disappear. Every generation inherits the same unanswered questions. Every generation adds new theories, new interpretations, new possibilities. Books are written. Films are produced. Researchers continue examining ancient records in search of overlooked clues. Yet the answers remain frustratingly out of reach. The deeper people investigate, the more complicated the story becomes. Because there is a strange paradox at the center of the mystery. If the treasure is found, the legend ends. If the treasure remains hidden, the legend lives forever. And for more than 700 years, the legend has survived. Not because anyone proved it, but because nobody could completely disprove it. That uncertainty transformed a historical event into something larger. A mystery that exists somewhere between fact and myth, between documented history and imagination. And perhaps the most surprising twist is still waiting ahead. Because the greatest mystery may not be where the treasure went. It may be whether there was ever a treasure to find in the first place. Because the greatest mystery may not be where the treasure went. It may be whether there was ever a treasure to find in the first place. This is the question that divides historians, researchers, and treasure hunters to this day. For centuries, the popular image of the Templar treasure has been simple: a vast fortune. Mountains of gold, jewels hidden in secret chambers, ancient relics locked away beneath forgotten castles. But history is rarely that simple. When modern scholars examine the surviving records, many reach a surprising conclusion. The legendary treasure may have been greatly exaggerated. The Knights Templar were undoubtedly wealthy. They owned land, fortresses, ships, financial assets, agricultural estates. Their resources stretched across Europe and the Mediterranean. Yet wealth spread across an international network is very different from a single hidden hoard waiting to be discovered. In other words, the treasure hunters may have been searching for something that never existed in the way legends described it. That possibility changes everything. Perhaps there was no secret chamber overflowing with gold, no underground vault packed with priceless artifacts, no final map leading to unimaginable riches. Perhaps the famous treasure was created slowly through centuries of rumor, speculation, and storytelling. A mystery growing larger with each generation that retold it. Yet even that explanation fails to answer every question, because some mysteries remain stubbornly unresolved. The disappearance of the fleet from La Rochelle, the missing records, the conflicting testimonies, the stories that emerged almost immediately after the Order's destruction. These details continue to fuel debate. And where certainty ends, imagination begins. That is why the Templar treasure remains one of history's most enduring legends. Not because it has been found, but because it has not. The mystery survives in books, in documentaries, in novels, in films, in late-night conversations between historians and dreamers. Every clue seems to point somewhere, yet nowhere at all. Every answer creates new questions, and every theory opens another door. Perhaps that is the true treasure. Not gold, not silver, not jewels hidden beneath stone, but something far more valuable. A mystery capable of surviving the collapse of kingdoms, the passage of centuries, and the scrutiny of modern research. Very few stories achieve that. Most treasures are eventually found. Most secrets are eventually revealed. Most legends fade with time. The Templar treasure did the opposite. It became stronger, more famous, more mysterious. 7 centuries later, people still search abandoned castles, still study ancient manuscripts, still follow forgotten trails across Europe, still wonder whether one final clue remains hidden somewhere in the shadows of history. Archaeologists continue making discoveries. Researchers continue examining overlooked documents. And with every new finding, the mystery seems to evolve rather than disappear. New clues emerge, new theories rise, and the fascination continues across generations. And maybe that search will never end. Because the moment the mystery is solved, something extraordinary disappears. The possibility, the wonder, the endless question of what might still be out there. So, was the Templar treasure real? The honest answer is that nobody knows for certain. Perhaps a fortune vanished before the arrests. Perhaps secret documents were hidden beyond the reach of kings. Or perhaps the greatest treasure was never physical at all. Perhaps it was a story powerful enough to outlive empires. A story that transformed a fallen order of medieval knights into one of the greatest mysteries the world has ever known. And until undeniable evidence finally emerges, the legend of the Templar treasure will remain exactly where it has always been, somewhere between history and myth.